University in 1832. Came over here as a bounce off of the Jacobin Society, which was involved in the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. At Yale University, they have a structure, and you can go there. Anybody can go there and see this structure they call a tomb. Inside the tomb, they have their initiation, and the fellows, they lay down in a coffin. And George Bush was one of them. They lay down in a coffin nude, and they're born again into this satanic order. It's the ritual. It's been there. William Buckley Jr., the Harrimans. Yeah. Conservatives? No. George Bush isn't a conservative.
Never has.
Ronald Reagan is not a conservative. In fact, Ronald Reagan is so far left. Can I say this? Ronald Reagan is not a conservative. He never was a conservative. He is not a conservative. He never will be a conservative. In the early days, they used to call him Red Ronnie. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
He was in the United World Federalists for 13 years. He was in the L.A. Committee for a Democratic Far Eastern Policy, which was associated with the Institute of Pacific Relations, which was listed as an instrument of the Soviet Union. This guy is so far left, he makes Fidel Castro look like a member of the John Birch Society. All you've ever heard about Ronald Reagan was simply rhetoric. We have a one-party system controlled by this oligarchy.
All right, that's George Bush. That's the Skull and Bone Society. And I guess I can see this. But Bill Clinton, though, he was not a member of the Skull and Bone Society.
No, I believe, is Bill Clinton a member of the Council on Foreign Relations?
Oh, yes, he certainly is. He's CFR.
Yeah, is George Bush a member of the Council on Foreign Relations?
Yeah, of course.
Bill
Absolutely.
Clinton wasn't laying naked in a coffin trying to get born again.
No. But we go back to an election, 1980. We had Jimmy Carter from the Trilateral Commission.
That's right.
We had George Bush from the Trilateral Commission, and John Anderson from the Trilateral Commission as the independent ticket. So it wouldn't make any difference which way the coin flipped. Heads, they win, tails, we lose.
The Rockefellers have never lost an election in the last 60 years.
Well, no, we lose even if the coin landed on its side. They had all bases covered.
Aren't you, when you mentioned the Trilateral Commission and you mentioned the Rockefellers, I've heard many fringe groups, ranging from the fundamentalists to the neo-Nazis or whatever, taking bits and pieces of this and constructing it into their own agenda. Aren't you worried about being misinterpreted?
They all have their own
Everybody
spin.
has their own spin on it, right? Their own agenda. But what we're talking about is things that can be proven from accepted reference works, and how you use that information to promote your own philosophies, your own agenda, that's their problem. And
you're saying that there is proof that from May the 1st, 1776, that the organization, the Illuminati, began,
you can look that up
and to the end of this very day, the Illuminati is still around pulling strings.
The cover of their document is the left-hand side, a reverse seal of the dollar bill. And it was put on there early on, but it was the reverse seal early on. But it wasn't until the Corn Cob mystic, Vice President not George Wallace, but Henry Wallace,
Henry C. Wallace,
who talked to Roosevelt and said, hey, this thing's got to go on there. Now, he had in the White House a little shrine for Madame Blavatsky. Now, Blavatsky wrote
Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine.
But she had a manifesto going. She also had a publication, a book. Well, I've seen the books. It's the combined works of LuciFer. She had LuciFer magazine, and I've held those copies of LuciFer in my hand, leather bound. She was the publisher and co-editor with Annie Besant, and from this LuciFer organization came Theosophy. And from Theosophy came Unity, came
yes,
this one world religion philosophy. And if you go to the United Nations, they've got a meditation room, and you'll find out that the Baha'i religion is the only one that is accepted in the United Nations. In the mediation room, you're going to find the little Illuminati pyramid. So it's loaded with symbology, and Jordan Maxwell is the expert on it.
And what I was going to say, too, is that the United Nations uses a particular publishing firm for all of their documents and books and materials, and it's called Lucius Publishing. The United Nations used Lucius Publishing. Lucius Publishing was at one time Helena Blavatsky's LuciFer Publishing. So today, the whole
funded by the
concept,
LuciFer Trust.
the LuciFer Trust, the United Nations. That's why it's in New York, because New York is referred to as the Empire State, because it's the new state of the new empire that is coming. That's why Steven Spielberg and George Lucas with their Indiana Jones and the Empire Strikes Back. It has to do with occultism, it has to do with numerology, it has to do with a lot of mysticism coming out of theosophy. The point being is that we are involved in some very powerful occult manipulation of the world by some very astute occultists, and we are not even beginning to be aware of how far down we are.
It's crazy to have a united world government. I don't want to do away with our individuality. Some people are white, some people are black, tall, short, fat, thin, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, Jews. I like the diversity. I don't want to see a world with 220 nations. I want to see a world with maybe 3,000 nations. I believe in the right to integrate, to segregate, to separate, to have linguistic, tribal nation-states emerge where there are these people, like in Africa, and I lived there for a while, where the Metabeles have been fighting the Mashonas. Let them have their own nation-states. Let that division take place. Let there be a free world alliance. Let there be a Croatia. Let there be a Serbia. Let all individuals separate and find a place that is comfortable. Let them do their own thing in their own time, in their own way. If somebody wants to be a racist, let them be a racist. Let them have a racist state. Let Israel exist. It's a religious state. It has a racist philosophy, fine. But let there be a Palestine. Let there be an independent Gaza. I would like to see the secession of Alaska. I worked there on Radio Free America for 3.5 years. I called for the independence of Alaska. It should be an independent nation.
Well, you know, when you're mentioning all this conspiracy stuff, you know, I'm thinking that, you know, when various things happen, like when the riots happened about 6 months ago.
April 29th and May 1st.
Right, and but when it happened, and when just about everything bad in our society that's happened, not just the riots, I mean, it's almost tempting to want to believe that there are people behind there pulling the strings and all that, because it creates the false sense of security that if we can just stop these people, we can have a better life and that sort of thing.
But we can have a better life if we stop these people.
You don't think it's just a bunch of incompetent people just making mistakes, and that maybe you're just reading things into things?
How could everything happen just accidentally? I mean, everything goes wrong, and it just happens to go wrong every time, everywhere, and we've been getting worse off and worse off and worse off. Ronald Reagan and George Bush, who are supposed to be conservatives, quote, conservatives, tripled the national debt. I mean, all of the debt that was acquired from George Washington through Jimmy Carter, they tripled the national debt, and then reporters get out there and say, hey, I'm thinking that these guys are conservative. They're not conservative.
But can't you just write it up to a bad economic plan instead of saying that there are people behind it?
By design.
Let me explain something to you.
The bad economic
you do not get to be president of the United States, and you do not have hundreds of advisors, highly educated, proficient advisors in every field of activity of human endeavor, getting C2 reports every day from the CIA. You're getting USIA, DIA documentation every hour on the hour for the economy of the world. All things happening in the earth being directed to the president's table. You don't make mistakes when you have become president. You have the finest minds in the world working for you, the finest intellects that the Western world can produce. That's why in a dog-eat-dog world, our country is the most powerful economic society on earth, because we are a very powerfully intellectual society. We don't make mistakes.
Well, Roosevelt put it this way: in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, it was planned that way.
Right.
So they planned on George Bush and Dan Quayle.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
George Bush and Dan Quayle are
matter
some
of
of our
fact-
most intelligent people working.
No, hell, no, they're not our most intelligent people, but they are
fronts.
conspiratorial.
They're
I mean,
fronts.
when you get somebody from the Skull and Bones and the Trilateral Commission and a guy who says,